The Ukrainian film industry is of the same age as film industry itself. An inventor from Kharkiv, Yosip Timchenko, created an apparatus for showing moving pictures back in 1893. The same year, a premiere of 2 short films was held in Odessa, The Galloping Rider and The Javelin Thrower, which happened 2 years before the famous arrival of a train at La Ciotat by the Lumiere brothers. In 1911, a Dnipro citizen, Danilo Sakhnenko, shot the first Ukrainian feature-length film called The Zaporozhian Sich. Despite the repressions against creative freedom, which was incompatible with the totalitarian ideology, there were cinematic breakthroughs. One of them was the appearance of animated films. Their golden age took place in the 1960s to 70s. Back then, Volodymyr Dakhno created his immortal animation series about the Cossacks, and David Cherkassky made a number of talented animated films, such as The Adventures of Captain Brungel and Treasure Island. This invaluable heritage hasn't been forgotten in independent Ukraine. For 14 years, the International Festival of Modern Animation has been held in different Ukrainian cities. In 2017, the Kyiv Animation Studio hosted guests from all over the world at the Alexander Dovzhenko National Center. The studio has existed for only 5 years, but is already making next-generation Ukrainian animation films, ones that viewers all over the world will thoroughly enjoy and appreciate. The first task was to create a studio, which would exist for a long time and would produce a large number of projects. There was no desire to get together to implement just one project. We oriented ourselves towards all the famous studios such as Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney, and European studios. Art director Christian Coccynelle is one of the people creating Ukrainian animation of the next generation. He manages the main projects of the studio, which include several series and 2 full-length animation films. Right now, the Kyiv studio is doing the most important work in its short 5-year history. Together with other managers, Maria Clowning coordinates the production. When a movie is in production, first all the footage is shot and then it is edited. In animation, it is completely different. Editing is done first, creating a sketch of what the animation should look like, and then all the details are refined. It means that if some piece wasn't included, it cannot be added later, as can be done with a regular film. Which stories do the Ukrainian animation artists tell? Can an animated film preserve national identity if it's targeted for the worldwide audience? Watch next in the program. Christian Koskinen learned animation from Volodymyr Dakhno, the author of the legendary Cossacks cartoons. The art director wasn't planning on engaging in film animation for all of his life. I've been engaged in animation since I was 19. I came to the studio just for fun, thinking it would be interesting. By education, I'm a painter and illustrator. Well, I thought I'll work for half a year and learn a thing or two about animation. And here I am, 20 years later. Christian had worked at a joint French-Ukrainian animation studio, which created hundreds of cartoons for Europe. It was then when he had realized that animation in Ukraine must appear as an authentic part of Western popular art. That is, the old know-how must be combined with modern competitive production. Until now, nobody in Ukraine succeeded in such an endeavor. We're making 4 projects at the moment. 2 of them are Ruslan and Ludmila and Stolen Princess. They're currently in the post-production stage and will be released and shown as soon as next spring. Stolen Princess is based on the same folk epic stories from the times of Kyiv on Rus, the same tales used by Alexander Pushkin in his poem Ruslan and Ludmila. However, Christian insists that what his team is creating is an original love story, just elaborated with stylized decorations.
Де це все тут узялося? Та байдуже, я така голодна. Вау! Оце вже я розлютилась. Отак. Так, принцеси знищують зайві калорії.
Викрадена принцеса.
Naturally, we're mostly oriented on the Western market. That is, the film will include some features that are quite unexpected in terms of visuals. If one expects to see a stereotypical representation of Kyiv in that period, they're in for a surprise. We're showing in this film a bona fide European city. The animated film is based on one of the classical Ukrainian plays, The Forest Song by Lesia Ukrainka. It is a love story of a forest creature and musician Lukash. In this case, the animator team had much wider possibilities for ethnic design. It took us a long time to decide which region of Ukraine to depict. Then we came to the conclusion that we should just show a generalized image. We're going to show the Carpathian beauty of Western Ukraine, the mud huts of central Ukraine, and many other aspects. It's essentially a generalized image of all of Ukraine's natural beauty. To create the modern and original animation film, experts from the Ivan Honchar Museum, Ukrainian Institute of Fashion, as well as ethnographers and professional clothing designers helped the animators. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg of this great work. Christian and his colleagues showed us what the process of creation of modern animation looks like from the inside and shared some professional secrets with UATV. How it's made. The first large stage of work on an animation film is the creation of a text screenplay and its main visual concepts. Both parts go through a multitude of changes and an intense artistic search. One of Christian's tasks is to correctly depict the characters based on the screenplay. It should not be just a bright picture. When it comes to scenery, the main task is to amaze the audience, to immerse into this world, to make a connection between the characters and the viewers, to immerse completely in the atmosphere and to create the effect of the audience's participation in the film. But one has to always remember that such a production must amaze the viewer. In the process of the artistic search, hundreds of sketches are created before a good image is found. Firstly, we work with kids. We begin with the ones close to us, the children of friends, acquaintances, then our producers, children of artists, kindergartens and schools. In addition, many tourists visit the studio. We constantly organize and conduct tours. We can show the material to visitors and get some valuable feedback from them. The final concept art pieces are given to 3D modelers. Their task is to make the three-dimensional characters. After the model has been approved by the creative group and the director, all this material is sent to texturing and surfacing. This is a stage where we add color and surface details to the model, for it to look as if it were real. So, if it's a tree, it must look like it has a matte color tone and have the texture of wood. After this stage comes rigging. Rigging is a stage when models are given the possibility to move. To do this, a skeleton is created. The skeletons for animated characters is not quite the same as skeletons of real living beings. At the same time, 2D artists are drawing an animatic. We grab the animatic, all the rigged models, and lay the shot out. This is the layout stage, when everything is combined, locations are set up, characters are put into their places, depending on how they are supposed to be standing, in relation to other characters, the set and some other objects. Very rough, draft movements of characters are made just to see how they move in the shot. Unlike movies where editing is done after the shooting is over, an animated film is edited before the final picture is there. The draft version may lack a lot of visual details, but the positions of cameras and shot changes aren't supposed to change after this production stage is completed. As soon as it is ready, special actors come into play. We're not talking about the popular of late motion capture when a person is equipped with sensors which record all their movements. In animation, everything must look bright, and all the emotions must be distinct for everyone to see them clearly. With the help of our actors, who already know what to do, we film reference videos. Our director processes them and sends them along with other materials to our animators. This stage is where all the magic takes place, when animators set every movement of the characters and bring them to life. Most of Ukrainian animators are self-taught, but they have already set a high standard for themselves. Maria Cloning stresses that motion capture animation is valued much less than one made by hand. Such are the world standards. When everything is ready, all that is left to do is to apply high detailed textures to the scene and render it. Rendering takes from several hours to several days to complete. And if you add all the previous stages, we're talking about weeks of intense work. On average, a minute of animation, a complete minute of animation, might take a month or 2 or 3. It depends on the complexity of the scene, the number of characters, and the complexity of all the decorations. Several final versions of an animated film can exist, which can differ in select scenes or characters. For example, if one desires to sell their film to China, one must take into account the peculiarities of its market and people. Something is allowed to be shown, something is not. Dragons must look like this, but not like that. There are Japanese, Chinese, and European concepts of what a dragon should look like. These conceptual differences increase the expenses, but by world standards, Ukrainian full-length animated films made at the Kyiv studio are still very cheap. For instance, The Stolen Princess cost several $1 million, whereas films by large animation studios cost dozens and hundreds of millions. It's a story for children intended to teach them something valuable. It must be fun and comprehensible for children of different ages from 6 to 12. We keep the adult viewers in mind, but still, our target audience is for the most part young children. In a mere 4 years, we made a huge leap forward and a lot of discoveries, not just for ourselves, although this also means a lot. We are growing rapidly in spite of having less money and less people. Today, Ukrainian animators are making their first steps onto the global market and are using unique stories from the rich Ukrainian culture, rather than super high-tech features in order to impress the viewing audience.